What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Coin. It's your host, Corey B, and today we're talking about Bitcoin mining. So we'll be answering questions like, where does Bitcoin come from? What is Bitcoin mining and how does it work? And why do people do it? So let's jump right in. All right, so to start off, if you've ever wondered, where does Bitcoin come from? Well, the answer is Bitcoin mining. Basically, it's a bunch of computers that are working trying to figure out a secret number, all right? And the first one who actually gets this number right is awarded the opportunity to put their block at the end of the blockchain, and then we move on to the next block. When they get this problem, this math problem right, they also get awarded in Bitcoin, and this reward is called the block reward. So this really answers the question, why are miners doing this? Why do they even buy this equipment and spend their time and resources to mine Bitcoin? Well, it's so that they can get these block rewards. And the Bitcoin protocol was written in a way where the block reward actually cuts itself in half every time we mined another 210,000 blocks. The way it started was, in the very beginning, the block reward was 50 Bitcoin. So for every block that you mined, you would get rewarded 50 Bitcoin to do whatever you want with. You can keep it, you could sell it, and this is the incentive for doing the mining. Well, after 210,000 blocks were mined, that 50 Bitcoin reward was cut down to 25. And then the Bitcoin reward was now 25 blocks. This 210,000 block period equals roughly 4 years. So we can, essentially estimate that the block reward will continue to drop in half every 4 years. Back in 2016, the block reward dropped down to 12.5 Bitcoin. So sometime around 2020, we'll drop back down to 6.25, so 6.25 Bitcoin. And then it will continue to half and half and half. So this diminishing reward will end up generating a total of 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be any more than that. And the protocol was written so that it caps out at 21 million. That was done on purpose. So as an example, let's say I set up mining equipment and I were to mine successfully a block today. I would be rewarded with 12.5 Bitcoins plus any transaction fees that would be associated with that block that I just mined. So the thing is those transaction fees actually only account for 0.3% of the overall mining revenue that's generated today, which means that as miners, if I don't actually mine, but if I mined, I would be much more incentivized by the block reward as opposed to the transaction fees. Now, you're probably thinking, well, if the block reward is going to continue to go down, every 4 years it's going to be cut in half. Then what is incentivizing miners to continue to do this mining in the long term? And another question to answer is, what if two computers actually came up with the right answer at the same time? Which one wins? So that brings us into talking about the security of the network itself. First off, mining is completely decentralized, which means that anyone with internet access and the proper hardware can actually set it up and start mining Bitcoin today. The security of the network largely depends on the amount of miners that are in the network. If there is a disagreement amongst which block gets placed, then effectively the protocol was designed in a way to make a decision based on a simple majority consensus. So all that means is if more than 51% of the mining power agrees that this block is the correct block, then that's the block that gets chosen. And by writing the protocol in this way, it makes it a very secure system. You have to control more than half of the entire mining pool in order to actually corrupt the blockchain. So in that sense, the more miners we have, the more secure the network is. Now you might ask, well, what happens if someone does get more than half of the mining power? So this is what it would be called a 51% attack. If any individual or organization somehow ends up gaining more than 51% of the entire mining pool, the entire mining power, then they will have the ability to corrupt the blockchain. And this is the pretty much biggest security risk of Bitcoin that is out there. But you have to imagine that there are millions and millions of computers that are currently working together to mine Bitcoin. And we're still early in the stages of Bitcoin, so there's still a lot more miners that will be coming on board. For any one individual or organization to end up hacking more than half of all of that mining power would cost an insane amount of money. It would be extremely difficult and highly unlikely. So that means that the network is actually very secure. This is why the incentives and the transaction fees within Bitcoin are so important, to continue to bring in new miners, to continue to increase the size of the mining power across the entire network, and to increase the security of the network at the same time. Regardless, this does bring up, the problem that as the block reward diminishes over time, the incentives to do the mining will need to be replaced by the transaction fees, or something is going to need to happen to continue to incentivize miners. Otherwise, this could become a really big security problem for Bitcoin in the future. But please keep in mind, we're talking many, many years down the line, plus the value of the Bitcoin continues to go up, which means that people are going to continue to want to mine it. For example, sometime around 2030, the block reward will have diminished to about 1 Bitcoin per block that is mined. So for every block you mine, you'll get 1 Bitcoin as a reward. Now, assuming that Bitcoin continues to rise in value, in the year 2030, let's just say that 1 Bitcoin is worth $1 million or more, right? There's a lot of speculators and analysts out there that claim that Bitcoin will reach $1 million at some point. So assuming that they're right, let's say 1 Bitcoin is worth $1 million in the year 2030. Well, if I'm a miner, if I'm gonna get paid $1 million to figure out a block, I'm still gonna do that. Now you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, this sounds feasible. How hard is it to actually do the mining? And the answer to this question largely depends, again, on the amount of mining power that is across the network. So the Bitcoin protocol was programmed in a way to actually automatically adjust the difficulty based on how much mining power was in the network at any given time. So the way it works is every 2016 blocks that get mined, the protocol reevaluates the mining power and determines whether the difficulty will go up or go down. So if there's more miners after 2016 blocks, which is about 2 weeks, if there's more miners after 2 weeks, then the difficulty will go up. If there's less miners, then the difficulty will go down. And the idea behind this is that the rate of block discovery will continue to change over time. So it doesn't stay stagnant and it continues to react based on the mining power in the network. Now, besides the difficulty of the actual Bitcoin mining, you need to have the proper hardware as well. So in the very beginning, back in like 2009, the only hardware that you needed was actually the CPU inside of your computer. That's why any regular PC or laptop could actually mine Bitcoin way back then. But obviously, as more miners came in, as time progressed, the difficulty level continued to increase to a point where CPUs couldn't handle it anymore. And miners started to realize that actually the graphics processor inside the computer could mine the Bitcoin much more efficiently. So they started using these GPUs and special built equipment that just had GPU cards in there to mine Bitcoin. Well, as that became more and more popular, obviously the difficulty continued to rise. So like anything else, the space innovated and companies started developing and creating hardware specifically to mine Bitcoin. And today we have these cards called ASICs, or Application Specific Integrated Circuits. So basically they're really powerful graphics cards on steroids that were designed specifically to mine Bitcoin. Now with the difficulty level that Bitcoin mining has gotten to, it really doesn't make sense to mine Bitcoin with anything other than the latest ASICs cards that are out there. Realistically, this is the only profitable way to continue to mine Bitcoin. Now you might be thinking, well, that sucks, right? I want to mine Bitcoin. Well, fortunately, there is an answer to this problem, and it's mining pools. Mining pools are just basically third parties that have organized a group of miners to bring together their mining power and their resources and to create larger mining pools. Instead of an individual trying to mine on his own in his house, his or her house, now they can be a part of a mining pool where they can collectively put their resources together and have a much better chance at figuring out the next block and therefore getting the block reward. Now, if you're part of a mining pool, you do split your payouts amongst everybody that's participating. But what's great about this is as soon as you sign up for a mining pool and you start getting your mining equipment going, you get immediately paid out in Bitcoin, and a steady flow of Bitcoin that continues to pay you out every single day. Now, another reason why you may consider a mining pool over creating your own mining rig is the electricity cost associated with actually mining the Bitcoin. Most mining operations tend to be located near cheap, abundant power. So wherever there may be wind fields or water power plants or big power plants or anywhere in the world where it's cheap to generate electricity, these mining operations will actually go and set up camp in those locations. So as a recap, the bottom line is Bitcoin mining is essentially a bunch of computers trying to guess a magic number. The first one to guess that number and gets it right gets rewarded in their block reward as well as any transaction fees that may be associated with that block. This is exactly how every single Bitcoin that is in existence was ever brought into existence. Bitcoin mining is how Bitcoin comes out into circulation. The total of all Bitcoins will never exceed 21 million. And this capped supply, along with the rising demand for people wanting to buy Bitcoin, is really why Bitcoin even has a value and why that value continues to go upwards. However, as the computing power increases in mining and the puzzles become more and more difficult for the miners to actually solve, this is going to help keep that mining profitability in check. Now, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin mining on a more technical level, there's some links down below in the description, a couple of articles that you should go check out, and a few videos that explain Bitcoin mining a little bit more in a technical aspect. If you're actually interested in getting into mining and setting up your own rig, I highly suggest you go check out that information. And again, if you're interested in joining a mining pool, I've got a video right here, over here, there, where I review a bunch of mining pools and I talk about how you can actually become a part of that. But that's about it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it answered some of your questions, gave you some new insight onto what Bitcoin mining is. If you did enjoy it, I would much appreciate the thumbs up. Smash that like button as much as you can. As always, guys, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we drop new videos. All right, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Corey B, out.